Be very careful. Don't ever come in about 9 o'clock at night with a little low fire going in and stuffing the fire backs, and you've had too many drinks and then go to bed. It'll cook you. I know. You can get them too hot because, they're so well insulated. It doesn't take much wood to hang on.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. And we'll continue on now. Let's see, with number 33, Bighorn Sheep Disease Update. Larry Gilbertson.
For the record, Larry Gilbertson, Department of Wildlife. Wish I had a bunch of good news or some interesting further developments in the bighorn population over there. We really don't have anything new to report. We were hoping that as we check in goat hunters, we'd maybe get some reports of a small group of sheep somewhere that we'd missed or didn't know about. And so they're coming in, the hunters are coming in, and we're asking. The only thing that one of them reported was he found 2 yearling ram carcasses, but they were real old. They weren't they hadn't died recently. They were old ones. So, but I guess if there's any good news is the 7 radio callers are still active and we haven't lost those, and we don't have any recent reports of any sheep dying. So that's all I've got.
All right, we have a question, Mr. Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The estimate you gave at one time could be up to 95% in both ranges?
Correct.
Boy.
Mr. Vogler?
Larry, would there, I guess this is probably a silly question to ask. I don't know how they would just leave that mountain, but you know where the road comes around the east side of Ruby Valley, the dirt road, and then you turn out to go to 93 to the east? Right there in that little set of low sagebrush hills? There was about 25, 26 of them right there, right alongside the road. I wouldn't have seen him, but some guy on a motorcycle and his woman were taking pictures of them. And there was a couple of pretty good rams in there, but they were just piled up like they were in a wad, but they were out on that desert flat. I don't know. I assume they come off the East Humboldts?
They sure could have. We've had a few over the years, a couple of ewes now and then reported over on spruce.
Yeah.
So who knows? They sure could have.
Yeah, and of course, I've seen bull elk cross there too, so I don't know if there's a spring in that area or what, but if next time you fly by that country, why don't you make a circle over that way, because they were darn sure right down on the desert floor.
Wow.
And they were used lambs and rams, and that I thought was odd too for the time of the year.
Another place where some sheep have kind of disappeared from is over at Wendover. And our surveys there were nowhere near as high as last summer. And they found a couple of diseased ones. Utah's picked up a couple right on the Utah border there. And our counts were down. So we've had sheep move, over to the Pequot Summit sometimes. And so who knows? Could be from over there too. That's interesting. It's a good sighting.
A question from Mr. Lent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard that, talking to a rancher up there, that and I'm not familiar with the area, but he says right in the Secret Pass area, he said that he counted 40 rams there, or not 40 rams, but 40 sheep in there. And he said there's a couple nice rams. And I also talked to another hunter that was over there scouting for elk on Pilot Peak. And he said those sheep they looked diseased. He said they had spots on them. He said you could walk right up to them. They just stood and looked at you on Pilot Peak. And he says there's a bunch of sick sheep up there. And he was scouting for an elk tag, so I don't know if you know anything about that or not.
No, nobody's reported that. Those would be good reports for our folks to check out. If you know the names or anything, we'd be happy to talk to them and have our biologists talk to those guys.
They live in Reno, and they were up there scouting on elk, and I can give you their names,
Yeah, it'd be worth following up, something like that, for sure.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see, I have a question on this. So basically, we have 95% more or less die off. What do we have on information on cause? I mean, you guys been doing a lot of studying, I'm taking, on the cause of this die off. Have we come up with any preliminary results? Do we have anticipated results on cause of die off? Speculation?
We could have our wildlife veterinarian provide all of that information at the next meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, but there's been, I mean, since then, I know that she was doing a lot of tests.
We can have her update at the December meeting, for sure.
Maybe you've seen some sheep somewhere.
No, I was just, Tom Casanelli for the record, representing myself. Mike Checky was who you were talking to. He's another one, if you haven't, that has the elk tags up in. Okay, yeah, it's Mike. Anyway, what I want to talk about is, I don't know where we're going on this number 34. I have some pretty big interest in the
In
Rockies.
34, well, we can just move right on to 34 then, if you want to.
Yeah, that's what my number was.
Okay. All right. Hold on for 3/4 of a second. All right, let's finish. Let's move on to number 34 then. And let's start number 34 with public comment. Mr. Casanelli, thank you. Here we
Yeah, considering the die-off and, of the Rockies there and the Rubies and the East Humboldts, I have some concerns on pushing reintroductions of a different strain of sheep in there. We've had this die-off in the past, and it was, I don't know if it's quite as bad, but it was pretty bad in '95, and they come back out of it pretty quick. And we have a quality of rams and sheep in there that I'd hate to mix with a lesser quality. And I think that we should let them come back on their own and see, at least for a while, and see what they're doing. If we need to introduce some separate herd at a later point, we could do that. But right now, I think the quality and the genetics we have in the Rubies and the East Humboldts is just something we shouldn't mess with. And as we all know, they come back pretty fast from the last one. Hopefully, they'll do the same this time.
Question, Mr. Lent?
Tom, I think there's some place where, I think, I heard we can get some from Arizona. They've got some nice sheep. Arizona, New Mexico, one of those that's got some, really nice strain of sheep. And so if we could get some from one of those states, as long as they're a high-quality strain, it might be an opportunity to do it. Was it Arizona or New Mexico? It's got New Mexico. They've got a super strain of sheep. If we can get some, that I wouldn't object to putting some of those in there to mix the blood, because I think we got a gene pool in there, and I think that was one of the problems. One is, I think we're trying to stockpile them, and two is we didn't do a genetic makeover, and get some other strains in there. I think those are a couple of the reasons, and I wouldn't be opposed to getting a nice strain from New Mexico. I think if you look into that, there's supposed to be some pretty good ones there, and I don't know if you would have any problems with that.
I have some concerns on trying to do anything genetically, because bottom line is, sheep are pretty, when you come into the disease side of it, their genetic makeup, by what I've been told, I'm no biologist, and I have no degrees in that, but what I've been told is their genetic makeup from domestic sheep all the way to doll sheep are so close, the DNA and stuff are so close already, that it takes quite a bit to break it down to show the differences. And I think that's probably the same thing. You might get little traits like horns and different things like that you could change, but we've all dealt with this disease, and we know what it is in the cattle industry. It's the same way. It's not something that you're gonna breed out of these sheep. I feel that's not gonna happen.
Well, I've got a couple really known experts, that's a good point. I'll be asking about that, because very good point.
And that'd be interesting to me. I'd like to know that too.
Right.
If you find out, but I'm almost sure you're not gonna be able to breed out this disease problem in in these sheep herds.
Speaking of world-renowned sheep experts, Mr. Vogel, you had a question?
Tom, it was a long time ago, you and I were in Animal Science 101. But you remember colostrum?
Yeah.
If we're going to bring in anything, they should be wormed, and they should have a battery of shots. So they will give, in the colostrum, to their offsprings, a certain amount of resistance. It's not a panacea. It's no different than selenium salt. State of Nevada is low in selenium salt. So is the Northwest Territory in Canada. So is most of eastern Alberta. And with selenium, it helps them in reproduction. It helps them on lots of things. There are some management tools besides body counts that will work. They are habitual. They do pile up, which gives them worm problems and other things like that. So I'm on your side. I think we either let them come back naturally, or if we reintroduce them, we have to have good, healthy sheep that have had a battery of shots. Maybe their effigy won't be as great. Maybe it won't affect them as much, but we can do it, because myself, I know there is no money in running sick sheep. You have to have healthy sheep to pay the banker back.
And I agree 100% with that. I think maybe that's something the department could address to this commission, what their guidelines are for vaccines and on their reintroductions of animals into areas. And you and me both know that that's a one-year solution, those shots, and that lasts a year, and then you're going to go back to deficits, especially on selenium. And but I agree with you. When you put them in, let's make them as healthy as we can for that first year. Right. And I'm sure they're already doing that, or a majority of them are getting that. But we should know what's happening on that.
All right, we have any other public comment?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wellington? Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, Ken Wellington, Elko County. Our board in June approved a emergency plan for the sheep up there, and it's a predator, and we kind of combined it with monitoring and selenium blocks. And what we thought we'd do is, because of the animals they've taken out within this plan that we submitted, and of course, what's his name's left since then, that we submitted it within for the predator part of it. But with this, what we thought is that they have the background, or the all the species that have passed away. They've taken the samples. We know what they're deficient in. And what we wanted to do is put some type of blocks up there that wouldn't interfere with grazing or anything else up that direction. We used to have all the sheep, as Mr. Vogler knows, all over the mountains up there. And at that time, they were supplementing. Ranching still in the lower parts of the Ruby Mountains are supplementing with selenium and the cobalt, and they're doing that to make the animals healthier. And what we also added in our plan was a predator project to address the lions, because these animals are so weak standing up there on them rocks that them lions just walk up on them, like you heard testimony where people are walking up on. These lions are just walking right in. They just stand there and get taken down because they're so sick. And so what we want to do is we want to work with the department. Our board has approved that already. And when the mule deer part comes up, we've done a similar thing with the mule deer that we've addressed and put through. So, thank you.
All right, we had some more cards.
Dennis Wilson, representing Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. First off, Rex Flowers had to leave, and he was charged to read this letter to you from Mel Belding. Since Mel is on the board of directors of Nevada Bighorns Unlimited, and he asked me to make sure that this got read into the record as well. If Rex couldn't, I'm going to go right ahead. This is addressed to Mr. Flowers. I would like to put in writing what I said at the Washoe Cab meeting last night. That would have been September 16th. Nevada has more bighorn sheep than any other state except Alaska. This is something that would not have happened without the professionals that work for the Nevada Department of Wildlife and those that have in the past. Much has been learned in cooperation and consultation with other state wildlife agencies and various other organizations. Without a doubt, there have been setbacks along the way, and those professionals that were and are in charge have always worked through them and made decisions that we could support and be proud of. With their dedication and that of concerned sportsmen and women in our wildlife organizations, we are the envy of the rest of the states and those parts of the world that have taken up this most honorable mission of putting sheep on the mountain. We sometimes forget to recognize those that should be for the great job and vision they've had or have had. And we, without a doubt, should put our confidence and trust into those that have made this mission a reality. I'm proud of those that have done so, and will continue to support them in their decisions. Respectfully, Mel Belding. As we all know, Bighorn sheep pneumonia outbreaks are a very complicated and multifactorial issue. There's no one silver bullet. No two outbreaks are the same. So I'm asking you very much what Mel is asking you. Trust your biologists. Trust your professionals in the Nevada Department of Wildlife. Trust your veterinarian. She is a skilled, licensed, and nationally recognized disease specialist. Trust them. Help them. Let them help us through this crisis. There's been a lot of talk about science today, and I would like you all to consider forwarding, and once again, Commissioner Lent always bringing up the science aspect. I think that is something we always need to be thinking about. And I would like you to consider a definition of proven sound science and knowledge as incorporating the following: the utilization of the scientific method and recognizing scientific protocol, especially evidence-based studies, to arrive at scientific conclusions. It is understood that evidence changes with time, and therefore scientific conclusions may change with time. Number 2, peer-reviewed and accepted studies, and studies representing the majority opinion of scientific leaders in any given field should be given special consideration. And thirdly, anecdotal reports, field reports, and general observations should be collected and monitored over time, but should not be used solely for the decision-making scientific basis process. So we're asking you once again, as what's been touched on today, go with the science, go with what is known, go with the experts. Certainly take into account anecdotal reports because they're important, but please don't make decisions based entirely on anecdotal situations. And finally, Nevada Bighorns Unlimited wrote a letter to Dr. Annette Rink because she was asking our input on research for sheep diseases, and I'd like to paraphrase a portion of this letter. We would like to see researchers and wildlife managers develop a standardized protocol for dealing with disease outbreaks in wild bighorn sheep populations in a timely and efficient manner. We would like this to include isolation strategies to reduce disease propagation, sampling criteria and lab selection protocols to maximize sample value, and ensure useful data is obtained and available to all researchers and managers, as well as consideration to a first response team that would be able to go out on all bighorn sheep, or to be able to guide all bighorn sheep managers when faced with a disease crisis. We would hope this would develop into a cooperative system, enabling all wildlife managers access to vital information and past effort results and conclusions in a timely manner. This would set guidelines and protocols to ensure that disease events are treated in a consistent and efficient manner and allow good information from each event to be collaboratively reviewed by key members of the team as well as interested researchers. So just to recap once again, please, these disease die-offs are a mess. They're a true damage to one of our most precious resources. And once again, I guess we're saying all this because we're not quite sure what the intent was of this agenda item. But we want to make it very clear that follow the science, follow the recommendations of the experts, and let's work together, not only Nevada, but all western states that are suffering die-off problems. Let's work together in a collaborative effort, a team effort, to help solve and work with these problems. Thank you.
What do we have next?
Dennis, I wish that you would have been at the Walfa Sheep Group in last January in Reno, because there was a 2-day session, and basically what came out of there, and I was a little unhappy about that, because they, you know, there was a recommendation by, and there's a guy from Wyoming that runs it, and there's a recommendation by somebody there that all of the states that are affected pull their data and put it in a pool so if other states could benefit from it. And what came out of that, they said, well, we don't want to do that because we're not sure what we did is one to solve the problem. And even with Nevada, with Perry, she says, well, you know, she said, I might have just touched them and they got better. So I can't prove, given their shots, they got better. But I said, everybody that did something should put it in writing, and so all the groups and all the states can get together and show their observations. So when this outbreak happened in other states, they can go back and say, this state did this, and this state did this state did this. But it surprised me greatly they didn't want to do that.
Commissioner Lent, I couldn't agree more. It is so important because this is such a diverse, multifactorial, major problem. We need everybody's input. I'm surprised at that response.
I was very surprised at the response, and they didn't put all the data together with the states, and you know, it's just like, well, you know, they die off, I'll cull them out like Montana did, and you know, Montana's got some big sheep back now.
And maybe that's part of the answer. But how will we know unless we correlate all the information, compare results,
Exactly.
and work in a scientific method to try to help find out what we can do better?
Exactly.
All right, our next public comment
Thank you.
was, thank you.
From George Corner.
No comment, I think it's been covered.
We had Paul Dixon.
It's been covered, Dr. Lewis.
Next.
That's it.
Any, okay, anybody else from the audience first? Out there? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Mr. Vogler.
My only comment was, is if Rocky Mountain Elk Found, not Rocky Mountain, was Bighorns Unlimited would please try and use their influence. California won't share any of their information with Dr. Rink, blood samples or anything, or with anybody else. And I am not sure why that is. And they have had nothing but a nightmare trying to get a hold of their information. And if there's going to be any progress on the herd that comes into Nevada and Summers in California back and forth, we need some science, and they will not share their science. It's terrible.
Anybody else have comments on this or discussion? You know, I was looking at this item agenda, and basically what I want to see is, what I would like to see is this commission to come up with just a few ideas, and I think they've been mostly expressed today, on what we should see before it's time to transplant sheep back into this range. And just kind of throw out some, and you know, and nothing we're going to say is going to be something that NDOW might not be doing anyway, or probably doesn't think is a great idea. Some people like to get that idea, but let me throw out a couple things here. One of them being, we need to know what happened, why it happened, and what we can do to prevent it again, because it would be senseless to go ahead and repopulate it if we don't know what the problem was. Just throwing this out as a general ideas. Okay, just look it over here. I want to make sure I wasn't, every time he coughs, you know. Oh, wait a minute, there was another law I missed. But, okay, where was I? But, you know, we need to know what caused it, how to make sure it doesn't happen again. If we don't know that, I don't know how much money it cost to get these sheep in there to begin with, but it was huge. In terms of dollars and time, manpower. So we need to make sure that at least we do the best we possibly can to make sure it doesn't happen again, and hopefully we'll have a series of these meetings. We need to, I think that I'd like to see NDOW, and I'm sure they're doing it, explore every possible opportunity, and there's some things out there that, are thrown out there continually, and I don't know if selenium salt is the option, or supplemental feeding in the winter is the option, or, all the different things that we haven't necessarily been doing. But like the salt thing, it seems, hey, it's cheap and it's easy. We could do it. What would be the worst to be lost? What do we have to lose? There's some things like that, we don't have much to lose on it. They're not, those things, it makes sense. If there's a possibility it's going to work, we need to throw them all out there. If we're going to spend some more money to transplant sheep back into this area, or these areas, I should say, we need to really think about it and maybe come up with a checklist. Have we done this, this, and this? We have some comments with Mr. Lent, and I'm thinking of.
Just want to echo your concerns, Mr. Chairman. It's going to, I don't see how we can transplant until we find a cause. We might never find a cause. And then the question is, how long do you wait before you transplant? 1 year, 2 year, 10 years? And like I said before, there's some other strains out there genetically, and I'm not sure you can breed this out of sheep, disease out. I'll try to get some more information on that, but it's going to be very difficult to put sheep back till you find out what's causing it, because the money and expense involved, and so that was one of the things. And I'm not sure the veterinarian on staff at NDOW, is she still working on it, or they just give up on it? That's what I wanted to know, if what they're progressing, if they're doing anything else on it.
Okay, so we'll probably have a report on that, where it's indicated at our next meeting from the veterinarian. We have other questions, comments at this end? Nope. I'll move. Mr. Vogel, anything else? Nobody. Okay. This was put on here as an action item in case somebody wanted to throw something out, but we don't have to act on it. It's just thrown out there in case somebody had some idea. We don't need to. I was just about to say, if seeing no motion, if there's no motions, we'll move on. I see no motions. There's no motion to left, no motions to right. Seeing no motions, we'll move on.